You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's February the 29th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, your cannabis and psychedelic news source. Good morning, Green Irene. How you doing?
Hello, Al. It's been a while since I've been here, at the desk.
Sure has. Well, you know, Glenn is in the sunny south still. He should be probably heading home soon. He was there for the month of February, down in Costa Rica. And Cindy is involved in a ceremony today, helping some patients.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm glad I had the availability. I really do enjoy doing the news. You know what? I don't get to do enough news when I'm not here. I don't get to hear enough or see enough, so this is kind of cool. It gets me caught up.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. And you know, even like I've been doing this for 15 years, and still every time you do the news, there's always something that's new. Stuff can be, people can learn. That's why we put out the name. We have the name Educational News in our title. So
that's right. Because there's always something new coming up. For sure.
Oh yeah, there is. There's some studies and reports that we're going to be touching on today and talking about the news. Let's get at her. First is from MJ Biz Daily. Canadian federal cannabis tax revenue outpaces beer and wine.
Right. Canada's federal government collected more excise tax revenue from cannabis than it did from beer and wine last year. And that comes as a parliamentary committee is recommending that the government ease up on the cannabis tax.
Yeah, in 2022-23 fiscal year ended March the 31st, the federal government received $610 million from excise duties applied to beer, according to the country's public accounts, which provides detail on the government's financial operations in the last fiscal years. Excise from other products was $277.5 million from wine and $204 million from manufactured tobacco.
Yep. Beer and wine excise revenue combined a total of almost $888 million. Federal excise duties from cannabis that year, meanwhile, amounted to approximately $894.6 million, of which $667.6 million was transferred to provincial and territorial coffers.
Yep, so, that left about $227 million for the federal government in 2022-23, and the federal government's share of the national excise cannabis levy has grown significantly in recent years.
Yeah, in the fiscal years ended in March 31st, the federal government's share of cannabis excise levy was $160.22 million in 21-22, $108.9 million in 2021, $52 million in 2019-20, and $18.4 in 18-19. So you can see we have more than 100% increase, or about 100% increase.
Yeah, and the other numbers show that twice as much on the tax was collected than on the wine end of things too. So Canada's cannabis levy has been subject to substantial scrutiny from the legal cannabis industry, which says the formula the government uses to apply the tax is disproportionate and unfair. In its report in advance of the 2024 federal budget, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance made 359 recommendations covering everything from foreign to environmental policy and taxation.
Yeah, the committee proposed adjusting the excise duty formula for cannabis. It wants the excise duty changed so that it's limited to 10% ad valorem rate, meaning 10% of the value of the transaction. So the duty currently imposed on producers dried cannabis is either $1 Canadian per gram or 10% of the value of the gram, whichever is greater. This can end up amounting to upwards of 30% of cannabis revenue.
Oh, yeah, they've been screaming.
Yeah.
For example, Toronto-based cannabis producer Organogram Holdings reported gross sales of $233.6 million for its fiscal year ended September the 30th. That same year, the company's federal excise tax amounted to $72 million for an effective excise levy of 30%.
Crazy, right? Recommendation 156 asks the government to provide investments for First Nations engagement in the Cannabis Act review. However, that review is expected to be completed before the budget is released this spring. The federal government is not obligated to accept the 359 recommendations, including adjusting the cannabis excise rate.
Now, David Klein, CEO of Canopy Growth, he tells MJ Biz Daily that the committee's recommendation to adjust the excise formula is a testament to the broad political consensus behind these changes, which address some of the most critical issues facing the Canadian cannabis industry. Today, he goes on to say that we encourage the federal government to rapidly implement these recommendations, which will meaningfully improve the financial health of the industry, and remain committed to working collaboratively to support the long-term sustainability of the cannabis industry in Canada.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I get it. I get it that, you know, these guys are screaming. I get it that it's a new industry, and I get that the government, you know, there's going to be a lot of hiccups, that sort of thing along the way. But an overtaxing is very obvious here, and it needs to be addressed for sure. So,
yeah, exactly. All righty. On to our next story. And the headline on it from Fresh Toast says, does McConnell's exit signal the end of marijuana prohibition?
So
yeah, he's anti-marijuana. He's always been a thorn in his side. So,
and very strongly anti, right? You know, somewhat surprised, and that's why it's not a huge surprise. Mitch McConnell has announced his decision not to run again for Senate GOP leader in November. Mitch McConnell embraced being called the Darth Vader. For 17 years, he's commanded the GOP Senate and had an oversized influence in the larger Republican Party. In the last year, he has been plagued by a divided party, a tussle with former president, and health issues. So it was only a somewhat surprise that he announced that he was stepping aside in leadership. Politicians are lining up to take his place, and he will have a tough go until November when he relinquishes the position. But does McConnell's exit signal the end of prohibition?
McConnell has been proud of remaking the Senate and accomplishing his personal political goals. While a senator, he and his wife has made a fortune of $35 million, while stopping small cannabis businesses owners from getting ahead. Born in a different era, McConnell is conservative from the old school, legal marijuana, LGTB, expanded voter access, and are enemies to him. As the legal state-by-state cannabis industry has blossomed to $20+ billion in sales, filling state coffers, McConnell only grew more firm in his stand to block federal legalization.
You know, this is someone that would cut off their nose in spite of their face.
Yeah.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace, a strong ally of the industry, said publicly what everyone is thinking. If McConnell is a no on federal legalization, it is a no-go. He has stonewalled the SAFE Banking Act multiple times. And when the Senate flipped, Senators Chuck Schumer and Patty Murray put forward the Safer Banking Act with a bipartisan group, only to have it die due to the House's leadership chaos.
McConnell has been fine going against public opinion when making policy. He feels he is correct. Marijuana federal legalization has over 87% of public approval, and veteran groups have pleaded for support on cannabis to help with PTSD. Both appeals have fallen on deaf ears of the Grim Reaper, and he has seemed pleased when he wins a major battle against the public and voters.
Just an antagonistic little shit, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
While his loss indicates a positive for the cannabis industry, there is a downside, though. Like the House, the Senate could get swept up in a power play as the players reshuffle who's in control. Meaningful legalization could come to a standstill without strong, focused leadership whipping votes. With the Biden administration hesitate to move forward in the campaign promises, the cannabis industry is holding its breath.
Yeah. Yeah, it's McConnell has not been a foe or a good person towards the cannabis end of things, as they say. And it's with him gone, there's a chance that maybe something could be done, but we won't know.
We'll have to see. I mean, American politics are very different than Canadian politics, but when it comes right down to it, people are people, and I do see ultimate mass reform there. I mean, this man has made a crap load of money shutting down a lot of small businesses or interfering with them. So
exactly. Okay.
There's a price to pay.
All right, on to the next story. And this one comes to us from the International Cannabis Business Conference. The headline says, patients exhibit few changes in driving performance following medical cannabis use.
This is always such a debate. So every responsible cannabis consumer and advocate on earth recognizes that operating a motor vehicle on a public roadway while being intoxicated by any substance, including cannabis, is not safe. But with that being said, just because someone has cannabis in their system does not automatically mean that they're too impaired to safely operate a motor vehicle. Governments have seemed to struggle with that premise when crafting the DUI laws in their jurisdictions.
Yeah. Medical cannabis patients are particularly affected by bad cannabis DUI laws, as they essentially have to choose between taking their medicine or risking prosecution by simply having metabolized THC in their system. Researchers in Australia recently conducted a study involving medical cannabis use in driving performance. Below here, you'll see that there's an article here, right up here from Normal in the USA.
Right. And so that was okay. So basically, patients displayed few changes in their driving performance following the use of medical cannabis products, according to the data that was published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology. Australian researchers assessed simulated driving performance in a cohort of 40 patients authorized to consume cannabis. That was under Australian law. Physicians may authorize cannabis products to patients unresponsive to conventional prescription treatments. So participants completed a baseline driving assessment prior to their participation in the study. On the day of the study, patients consumed their typical dose of medical cannabis at the testing site prior to engaging in a battery of driving simulator tests.
Researchers identified no significant changes from patients' baseline driving performance that would indicate psychomotor impairment. They reported in this open label semi-naturalistic study, simulated and perceived driving performance among 40 patients was assessed prior to and following self-administration of their own prescribed medical cannabis product. While oil users tended to have higher standard deviation in lateral positioning values, this was stable over time, and there was no evidence of impairment for either administration route. Furthermore, the lack of changes in speed variability suggests a modest but sustained stabilization of vehicle control. Notable evidence of driving impairment, they say, example, significant decline in driving performance metrics within the simulated driving scenario was observed for either consumption modulability relative to baseline.
Right. The study's authors ended concluding, overall, the semi-naturalistic study suggests that medical cannabis used as prescribed has a negligible impact on simulated driving performance. So the study's findings are consistent with those of several others determining that daily cannabis consumers and patients especially exhibit tolerance to many of cannabis's psychomotor influencing effects. According to findings of a new literature review published in the Journal of German Medical Association, patients who take cannabinoids at a constant dosage over an extensive period of time often develop tolerance to the impairment of psychomotor performance so that they can drive vehicles safely.
There you go. The study that checks all that. And, you know, people have often wondered about that. But somebody could also turn around and say, okay, there they say the person builds up tolerance and won't be impaired. But people would say, well, you know, like, for example, I could drink, you know, maybe 1 or 2 beers and I'd be toast. Whereas other people can drink, you know, 15 or 24, right? And
Yeah.
so, you know, there's that argument of
the
things.
brain
But
is an amazing tool. It will adapt its cognitive abilities according to the stimuluses you provide it. So that's where the tolerance builds up. We just learn to handle the high differently as patients. So we don't experience it the same as a new or infrequent consumer.
yeah, and the other point of all that is that as patients, we've always got THC in our systems. So even first thing in the morning, let's say I didn't have a toke after 8 o'clock last night. First thing this morning, I'm driving down the road or whatever at 9 o'clock, and for some reason, you know, I get tested, and it showed that I was over 5 nanograms, and it telling me that I was impaired. But even though I hadn't consumed cannabis in over 12 hours.
Exactly. And this is why I think the answer to this is give patients a medical card. That way, if they're stopped, here's your license and my medical card. Or you know, if they're gonna test you, here's my medical card. In other words, don't bother testing me for THC. You're going to find it.
Yeah. It's gonna be there. You know, even 24 hours later or more.
Well, up to 90 days, Al, because you are a regular consumer. You consume daily. So if you let go of all cannabis for 90 days, at the 89-day mark, you will still register some THC in your system.
No, and that's not fair obviously not fair to patients, right?
No, because
anybody else, nevertheless, because that's a lot of time between joints and getting that, you know, leveled down. So
that's right. That's right.
All right. On to our next story. This one comes to us from StratCan. Headline says Ontario Cannabis Store finds creative way to get around social media restrictions.
I love this. As you know, I love marketing and advertising. I love putting together these strategies. And so when I saw this, it was like, wow, no way. This is awesome. Yeah. Ontario Cannabis Retailer Stoked, that's STOK-D Cannabis, has released a series of ads. It says circumvent the social media platforms. It does restrictions on cannabis advertisements by promoting neighboring brands. The retailer, with 5 locations in Ontario, collaborated with several local businesses around them to mention the store in relation to their own business, often employing cheeky puns throughout the ad.
Yeah, the ads included businesses like a bookstore, an electrician, a nail shop, and a sandwich shop, all located near or affiliated with the cannabis store. The campaign ran in January as sponsored posts on several platforms, in transit shelters, and local radio. Lisa Bignoia, a co-founder or CEO of Stoked, says they are still collecting data from the campaign to see how effective it was, but notes she has already seen increased foot traffic and customers have told her that they have seen the ads.
Right? She says the ads all went out on accounts connected to the local businesses, not their account. She explains that the biggest challenge they were seeking to circumvent is not federal ad restrictions, but the enforcement of the social media policies. She says, I think that Health Canada restrictions, I understand, and I think that we did our part not to go against those restrictions. It's the social media challenges that we have that I think was the bigger win. The ads were put out almost a month ago, and no one caught that there was the cheeky innuendo about a cannabis store. And we know that social media accounts shut down cannabis advertising as soon as they see it. None of them caught it, and I think that was the bigger win.
Aaron Kawaki, partner and chief executive officer at Angry Butterfly, who partnered with Stoked on the project, says the local businesses appreciated the approach. While our goal was to promote Stoked, it was also important to be authentic to the different businesses we were partnering with, he says. Finding that common language that promoted both was a key and a lot of fun too.
The trickiest part, he says, was while we thought this could work, we weren't entirely sure until the ads went live and passed through all the different filters. That was said by Bernice Lowe, the VP of Executive Creative Director at Angry Butterfly. We had a plan B and plan C ready to go just in case. The geo-targeted 21 plus campaign launched last month across multiple channels, including paid and sponsored posts and pre-rolls, evening radio, and select TSAs. But Angry Butterfly says the story was kept out of the ad industry press until the media finished its run to ensure that the news didn't reach the likes of Meta, Google, etc., to avoid the pushback.
And now it has, right? It's reached all of them. You can see some of the ads
Right?
there.
Oh, you really should play one of them, Al. I think that that first one, my nail girl, she's hilarious.
Okay, here we go. We'll see how this works.
Yeah.
Looking for the dopest nails in town? Here at New Nail Beauty Spa, our design is anything but half-baked. Whether you're feeling a hit of something blazing or more of a chill vibe, we'd be happy to hook you up. Come say hi. Visit us at 2410 Kingston Road, right beside Stoked Cannabis.
There you go.
So clever. I mean, it really is. That is just so clever.
Yeah.
Good.
All the little puns throughout it, and you can see the business there.
The bookstore, yeah.
Yeah, and by saying we're right beside Stoked Cannabis, it's just more like a landmark location to help people to understand what's going on or where they are, right?
I think it's great. It's extremely clever, and I mean, they stayed within range of the federal regulations, but bypassed all the social media BS. Very cool.
And working with their neighbors like they did. I'm sure it helped the neighbors get promotion, obviously, advertising out there.
Yeah, community camaraderie and that collaboration with additional businesses is so important.
Yeah,
to get along with your neighbors. Yep, that's
beautiful. It'd be interesting to see if others now, being that this is out there, try to do the same thing, because it's not them per se advertising; it's the other companies that are advertising. They're just being mentioned in it.
Exactly.
All righty. Last story before we go to break. The headline on it, which comes to us from the Green Market Report, says that psilocybin treatment beats placebo in Canax anxiety study.
These studies are fascinating me. I don't have a lot of experience with psilocybin at all, really, but I've been doing a lot of studying lately. So New York-based Incanax Healthcare Inc. reported positive results from its phase 2 PSI GAD-1 clinical trial assessing the effectiveness of psilocybin in treating generalized anxiety disorder. The trial, conducted in partnership with Monash University's Clinical Psychedelic Lab and led by Dr. Paul Lignetsky, looked to evaluate the efficacy of psilocybin compared to placebo.
We are thrilled with the results from our initial PSI GAD trial, President and CEO Joel Latham said in a statement. The safety and efficacy results from PSI implore us to continue the development of it through large-scale, well-controlled trials. Results indicated that the psilocybin group experienced a significant decrease in anxiety with the reduction of 12.8 points on the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale from a baseline versus 3.6 point decrease in the placebo group. It's a big difference.
Interesting, eh?
Yeah.
Additionally, the study reported that 44% of participants in the psilocybin group saw at least 50% reduction in anxiety scores from baseline, a rate that was 4 times higher than that observed in the placebo group. So the treatment was generally well tolerated with no severe adverse events noted. Following the positive outcomes of the PSI GAD-1 trial, Incanix plans to further explore the treatment's effectiveness with a subsequent phase 2B trial, PSI GAD-2. That next phase will be conducted in collaboration with Clerkenwell Health, that's hard to say, and will include multiple trial sites across the US and the UK.
In parallel, Canex is progressing with the development and regulatory steps for its psilocybin drug product, PSX-001, as part of its efforts to secure approval for further clinical trials in the U.S. The clinical stage pharmaceutical company, originally based in Australia and now is in the U.S., focuses on development medicinal cannabis products and psychedelic medicine therapies. So there you go. Helping with anxiety. It's always
Very
good when you
cool.
can.
Let's see how this, and you know what? So many people suffer from anxiety and depression, especially in today's times. Like there's been such a spike since the COVID, and it started to spike prior to COVID. And then when COVID hit, it just literally skyrocketed. The numbers, the ratio of people suffering and coping with anxiety, chronic depression. And psilocybin seems to really be making a difference for a lot of patients. So it's cool to see these studies coming out.
Well, talking about that, we're going to get into a study after about just that itself.
Right.
Bipolar depression. We're going to get into that right after we get back.
We can talk a lot more detail. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. All right, off we go. It's medication time. Irene and I'll be right back after our joint session. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We'll see you in about 3 minutes.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, you're back. We're back. Looks like you're still medicating.
I am. Do you know what? These things are great. So they come, actually, this one's empty. But they come like, so this is the package it's that I'm enjoying right now. And they're just little 3.5 grammars, but they're shaped like they're nice and easy. I don't have to roll them. And there's 10 in a pack, and it's really good for, those little in-between moments where this weather, the elevation, it's, gone up, gone down, and all within 24 hours. Inflammation's a huge thing, right? So this really helps stabilize. We spoke about patients' needs earlier.
You're crying. Yeah.
I'm a patient.
You're a patient. All right. And our next story is hopefully going to be helpful and educational for patients. And let's get on with that story. And the headline there that comes to us from StratCan says, UBC researchers launch clinical trial exploring CBD for bipolar depression.
This is very interesting to me because I've been keeping records with respect to CBD and depression in general, my own personal records. So finding this for bipolar was very interesting to me. Researchers at UBC's Faculty of Medicine are launching a new, unique clinical trial to investigate the potential of cannabidiol, which is CBD, as a treatment for bipolar depression. The new trial is funded by the Canadian Institutes of Health Research and approved by Health Canada. Now, the goal of the research will be to investigate if CBD can help manage acute bipolar depression alongside primary courses of treatment.
The trial will enroll approximately 360 participants spanning multiple sites across Canada, including UBC Mood Disorder Center in Vancouver and sites in Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. It says bipolar disorder is a complex condition with depression often posing the greatest burden for patients, says Dr. Yatham, professor and head of UBC's Department of Psychiatry and the study's principal investigator. This trial marks a significant step forward in exploring much needed treatments for bipolar disorder.
Right. Bipolar disorder is a chronic mental health condition characterized by extreme changes in mood that cycle through periods of intense highs known as the mania. So, woohoo! And then a low of depression, like, oh man, just suicidal depression in some cases. Depressive episodes present a considerable challenge for people living with the condition and are associated with feelings of sadness and hopelessness, a loss of interest in activities, there's trouble sleeping, and an increased risk of suicide. Despite available treatments, a persistent unmet need exists for much more effective and well-tolerated therapies. The new trial will explore whether CBD can help manage acute bipolar depression alongside other primary courses of treatment.
No large clinical studies have been conducted to assess the safety and efficacy of CBD in treating bipolar disorder. In a small pilot study published last year, UBC researchers found that CBD did not show significant higher adverse effects than placebo. Despite this, an exploratory analysis also suggests that cannabidiol should be further studied in bipolar depression in higher doses of at least 300 milligrams a day, and under research designs that could better control for high placebo response.
So our pilot trials showed signals for efficacy of CBD, which provided an impetus for the large trial. says Dr. Yatham. If proven effective, this has the potential to provide significant benefits to the patients by helping effectively manage their symptoms and, of course, improving the overall quality of life. The new randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study will evaluate the safety, efficacy, and tolerability of CBD product ProZ-001, manufactured and supplied by PBG Biopharma Inc.
The research team says that they anticipate that the outcomes will provide valuable insights into the development of novel and improved therapeutic options for people living with bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I love that they're doing the studies. I hate that they're bastardizing the plant. Whole plant therapy. Let's see some studies done with the whole plant instead of a pharmacal recreation. You know, Mother Nature knows best, and us humans we're just young and dumb, you know, on this planet. So quit trying to protect Mother Nature. Give them the plant. Other than that, I think the study is a great opportunity to learn.
Yeah. All right. Next story. This one comes from us from MSN, and it says Virginia Cannabis Control Authority opens applications for medical cannabis facility.
This is kind of interesting. Richmond. It's in Richmond, Richmond, Virginia. The Virginia Cannabis Control Authority is accepting applications for a permit to operate a pharmaceutical processor in the health service area. The permit will allow the selected processor to engage in vertically integrated operations, including the cultivation of cannabis plants, production of cannabis products, and dispensation to qualified patients. The primary
cannabis. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The primary cannabis facility will also have 6 satellite dispensaries throughout the health service region to provide better access to medical patients.
That's good. HSA1 covers a number of cities and counties in Virginia, including Shenandoah Valley, Charlottesville, Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, and Stanford. Those interested can submit their applications online along with a non-refundable fee of $18,000.
Non-refundable.
The application process will have 4 stages: submission of applications, review of applications, award of conditional approval, and the 4th one is grant of a pharmaceutical processor permit.
Applicants who receive conditional approval will have a year to fulfill all the requirements for the issuance of a permit. The fee for the initial permit is set at $165,000. Health Service Area 1 has lacked a pharmaceutical processor due to litigation, leaving patients there without easy local access to vital cannabis-based treatments, said Jeremy Price, acting head and chief officer of regulatory policy and external affairs. The CCA aims to bridge this gap and provide relief to those who rely on cannabis for medical purposes.
There you go.
Yeah. I just don't know what to say there. It's interesting.
No, I know. I was yeah, it was his facility. I wasn't thinking of it in the way that came out of there.
No, I wasn't either. I was thinking that story was going to lead us someplace else. So I'm speechless.
It doesn't. All right. On to the next story. This one comes to us from CBC News, and it says province cuts ties with Winnipeg foster home operator after teens given marijuana daily.
Yeah. So, okay. I really don't know what I think here. And I'm curious to see what our audience thinks. Like, guys, if you're listening to this story, please give us your opinions on this. I'm really curious to see how this will play out socially. Provincial Review found cannabis was given to foster kids as harm reduction tool by Spirit Rising House staff. So the Manitoba government is cutting ties with this private foster home operator and has asked police to investigate after learning that the home was giving underage teens unauthorized cannabis as a form of harm reduction. Spirit Rising
Spirit-
House,
Keep going.
which is a Winnipeg-based for-profit company, runs 9 foster homes and 2 specialized group homes for 34 high-risk youth in child and family services care.
Now, the family minister, Nana Fontaine, told CBC News that we are talking about some of the most vulnerable, at-risk youth with incredible complex needs. So to learn that the cannabis was being distributed was quite concerning. Former and current employees told CBC that underage youth were provided cannabis by staff, which was widely known throughout the company.
Harm reduction is great when it's being used for harm reduction. But what we're doing is providing weed every day at 3:30, said a former employee who used to work at one of the homes and gave the youth cannabis. Staff were told by upper management that it was better to have workers at the home provide cannabis than to risk residents going elsewhere and doing harder drugs such as, methamphetamine and opiates.
The former employee said it's easier to just keep them placated and happy than to have to deal with the paperwork, police, and hospitals. Another former employee said the teens, some as young as 15, were given a choice between getting 1 gram of cannabis a day or getting a weekly cash allowance. Every youth picked the cannabis, she said.
Yeah. She went on to say that an underage teen who had never smoked cannabis in her life before started smoking it daily after she moved into a Spirit Rising house home. It was very concerning to me, she says, when I would show up and she's walking around with a bong in her hand and just out of it all the time, said the former worker.
And it's all she does now. The 2 former employees are among 4 people, past and current employees, who spoke to CBC News about concerns with the operations of Spirit Rising House. CBC is not identifying the individuals because they fear speaking out will harm their future job prospects.
Yeah, they are speaking out because they say that what they've seen happening at the homes isn't right, and they believe that the children deserve better care. The foster homes are in charge of level 5 CFS, children in care, youth with high complex care needs, deemed at risk of sexual exploitation, drug use, and self-harm.
One current Spirit Rising House employee says the kids were given the best care possible from staff, but says the company took its harm reduction plans too far. She says, she asked that if people are providing the kids with a gram of weed every single day, what happens when they're not in their care?
Mm-hmm. She says, she goes on to say, we should be preparing them for real life, because some of these kids, the second they turn 18, they're out of the houses. They're gone. Yep. The Manitoba government got involved about a month ago after a department staff member alerted them to reports of cannabis being given to the youth by Spirit Rising House staff. And a spokesperson for the family's minister told this to CBC.
Around that time, a now deleted Reddit post was published accusing Spirit Rising House owners of giving kids cannabis as a means to numb them. Fontaine said her department investigated during an on-site visit and was able to confirm that unauthorized cannabis was given to the youth.
Well, in response, the government put a hold on all new placements in Spirit Rising House homes. They informed CFS authorities of their findings, and they decided to cut ties with the company, Fontaine said. Southeast Child and Family Services, which licenses Spirit Rising House, did a similar review and has placed a co-manager in the homes, Fontaine added. These findings were also reported to Winnipeg Police, who confirmed their child abuse unit is now investigating.
There is no timeline for when the youth will be transitioned out of the homes, Fontaine says. But right now, my priority is Spirit Rising House. More particularly, my priority is the children that are there and finding them a new placement. She says they deserve to be safe. They deserve to be seen, to be heard. And certainly at the end of the day, they deserve to be protected and loved.
Yes. Spirit Rising House Inc. began in 2021. It's co-owned by Ian Rabb, a well-known addictions counselor and managing director of Kelburn Recovery Center. Christine Ormiston, Kelly Register, and John Bennett are also listed as owners according to company records. The province and CFS agencies paid the company over $2.2 million for its services last year, according to figures provided by the government and the Southern First Nations Network of Care, an authority which is responsible for over 4,000 youth in care that oversees the Southeast Child and Family Services Agency.
Yeah, Spirit Rising House bills itself as a provider of homes that specializes in stabilization and treating addictions for at-risk use. Rab declined an interview request for the story. In a statement sent by the company's lawyer, Rab said he could not speak about the specifics due to the confidentiality concerns.
Yeah, confidentiality. That's a tough one, isn't it?
Oh, there's work out there that just drive me up the wall.
He said the company's homes focus on a harm reduction approach for kids in care who are addicted to opiates and methamphetamine. Using cannabis as part of this approach, he said, adding that it can be prescribed by physicians or the youth can just go out and buy it themselves.
Mm-hmm. They can, yeah, exactly. Yeah. He did not address allegations, and no evidence was provided to support the youth were prescribed the cannabis. Rab says in the statement that we all agree that abstinence is where we all want to be, and choosing to use cannabis instead of opioids or meth or other illicit hard drugs is a step in the right direction.
Following the Reddit post on January 29th, CBC obtained a February 9th memo that went to all Spirit Rising House staff stating that cannabis must only be given with a prescription from a doctor. To be clear, under no circumstances should there be any non-prescribed marijuana or cannabis products on SRH property moving forward, Executive Director John Bennett wrote.
The memo said before any controlled substance, including cannabis, is given to a youth staff also need the consent of the child's guardian, CFS agency. Cannabis cannot be given to the youth in lieu of their cash allowance, the memo said, and workers must document the use of any substance on a provincial form.
Bennett noted that the company is new and admits it has made mistakes. We take ownership of those mistakes and we intend to learn from them.
Yeah,
he says.
There you go. We'll just end that there. And it just, I know, I can understand where you're coming from at the beginning. It's sort of one of those mixed things where, you think they're doing it in order to help the kids when it comes to.
But are they doing it right? That's the
correct.
Question,
That's the part is, are they doing the process right? And obviously it doesn't sound like that they are. But obviously, it doesn't sound to me that this has just been happening over the last year.
Right.
It's been going on for a while, and they were rewarded, the company, $2.2 million. So that sort of tells me that there must have been some possible success there in order for them to be able to get the contract again and get that kind of money.
Exactly. So that being said, or adding to that, like he said, they're new. They're learning as they go. I mean, cannabis, as we know, is non-lethal. It has helped hundreds of thousands of people get off of meth and other street drugs, include and even tobacco and alcohol. I mean, cannabis has been that healing herb that has helped many. So I understand the heart behind it. We just need a little more process and because we're talking about kids, we're talking about vulnerables here.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do have, obviously, there's problems there, but you want to make sure that they do go the right process in order to get the approvals to do that. So
right.
Yeah.
And so that said, what do you guys think? Tell us, what do you think about all this? What's your opinion?
Yeah, exactly. And just so you know, I accidentally closed off the last story, and I'm in the process of trying to find it, and I'm not having very much luck. Just give me a second here, everybody.
Well, I can share. I have it up while you find
Okay,
it.
yeah, you've got that control of that, and go ahead. I won't be able to read it. I'll be able to just talk about it with you. So go ahead.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about what happens next for Germany.
Right.
Because I'll let you handle the board, Al. Because the headline last week, members of Germany's Bundestag approved a long-awaited adult use cannabis legalization measure. The successful vote occurred roughly 2.5 years after Germany's current governing coalition was first elected, and members of the coalition collectively expressed their desire to get such a measure passed. So Friday's legalization vote in Bundestag was 407 to 226, which is a major victory for Germany's cannabis movement. Germany is the largest country by far to have ever passed a national adult use legalization measure.
Germany's population is roughly 83 million people. The other countries to have passed a national legalization measure, which is Uruguay, Canada, Malta, Luxembourg, have a combined population of roughly 43 million people. The successful vote is a huge milestone. However, it does not mark the finish line for German legalization. For starters, the approved measure must now be considered by Germany's Federal Council. The Bundesrat approval is not required. However, the legislative body does have the option to challenge the measure.
As it stands, portions of Germany's legalization measure pertaining to personal freedoms are expected to go into effect on April 1st, 2024, with the launch of a non-commercial cannabis clubs expected at the beginning of July of this year. However, a challenge by the Bundesrat could delay implementation. It is possible that the implementation of the draft law may take some additional time, depending on the decision of the Federal Council, whether it refers the draft law to a mediation committee for further consideration of amendments. This could prolong the whole legalization process even for a couple of months, said Peter Homenberg. He's a partner at Denton's.
Per initial reporting by RND, Federal Health Minister Karl Lauterbach does expect constitutional challenges against the planned legalization of cannabis consumption, although he expects that the law will stand up to the challenges. Something that advocates should push for in Germany is the immediate suspension of enforcement of prohibition on individuals when they are within the perimeters of a recently approved law. With legalization now inevitable in Germany, subjecting anyone to enforcement is a waste of court's time. In addition to being harmful to the consumer, many legal states in the U.S. have taken this sensible approach. And we sort of had something like that here in Canada, too.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's sensible, common sense, right? So another thing that advocates need to push for is for Germany's government to remove the personal cannabis offenses from people's records. That's something we've been talking about here in North America as well. With German Health Minister Lauterbach recently spoke about, without amnesty, what would be our message to those convicted of cannabis? As far as legislature is concerned, you haven't done anything wrong, but the punishment remains because the courts don't want to do the work with you. Legalization will soon relieve the burden on the courts, Minister Lauterbach stated in a social media post that was translated from German to English.
Advocates also need to keep holding lawmakers accountable in Germany to make good on the planned second phase pillar of the nation's legalization model, which involves the launch of regional adult use cannabis pilot programs. The pilot programs, combined with non-commercial cannabis clubs and home cultivation, will serve as a backbone for sourcing legal cannabis in Germany for the foreseeable future. Cannabis clubs.
Right? I find it very interesting, the approach that they are taking. I like that. They're, rather than roll out a commercialized product, they're saying, let's put, for anybody who wants to consume, here's the clubs, here's how you're gonna have home grows. I really want to keep an eye on Germany. I really think I like how it's being legalized.
We'll find. Yeah, well, we'll find out. I'm sure it's going to have issues, just probably like everywhere else. There's always something.
Sure it will.
You know,
And
to get the cannabis legalization requires cannabis law reform.
yes,
And once you get cannabis legalization, doesn't mean that you stop looking
right?
for cannabis law reform. You work to improve it. You keep doing what you've been doing all along. You keep doing some type of protesting, or you keep educating people, or whatever you've been doing up to that point.
Well,
You just don't stop.
right there, you just said it out. Look at what's going on with our medical marijuana, our marijuana march here in Toronto on, is it March 4th?
Global Marijuana March, which is
Global
on
marijuana march. You know, a lot of I hear it from those who aren't in the cannabis community. They'll say, "Well, you got legalization. What else do you want?" My answer to that question is always a lot. Like, let's start with patience. Do you know what I mean? Let's start right there. There's a lot of changes. We want safe consumption lounges where we can go and have a coffee, smoke a joint or vape some weed, and chat with our friends without being ostracized and sent out to the back alley so you can have, we need consumption lounges. We need cannabis cafes. So
correct. We need higher possession limits. Why are we restricted to 30 grams?
Right. We need
higher
possession.
milligrams.
Right. We need, so there's still a lot to be changed. Remember that legalization is brand new. This is a nascent industry, meaning it's just a fledgling. It's a baby bird that just broke out of the egg. It hasn't even taken flight yet.
No, that's exactly. Well, Irene, just so you know, we won't be able to do this again as this type of day for another 4 years, as we didn't touch about it at the beginning, but today is a leap year day.
That's right. I have a friend who turns the happy 16, not really, today. And so happy birthday, Tess.
Yeah, there's lots out there. I know a fella I saw this morning, he posted online that it was his sister's 18th birthday. And I'm thinking, 18th birthday? Like, he's older than me. What do you mean 18? And then I clicked in, leap year, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that's
Exactly.
that's cool. So 4 more years before we get to do February 29th.
That's right. Exactly. Other than that, people, that's our Pace News report for February the 29th. I won't be able to say that for 4 years. And from the Legacy420.com news desk and for our buds at Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Legacy420.com and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca. In closing, we'd like to say thanks for watching or listening. Plus, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.